Welcome back to the Wise Mindset Guy podcast, the podcast where we take a magnifying glass to the human mind and all its quirky little habits. I am Nat Plastino and your guide through this psychological jungle, and today we're diving into a concept that affects literally every single one of us, whether we know it or not. It's called the looking glass self. And no, this isn't a sequel to Alice in Wonderland, although I promise it's just as mind-bending. This theory, which was first introduced by sociologist Charles Horton Cooley way back in 1902, suggests that our self-image isn't just something we cook up in our heads. Oh no, instead, it's heavily influenced by how we think others see us. Yeah, it turns out that we're basically walking around like human mirrors, reflecting other people's opinions right back onto ourselves. So grab a coffee, settle in, and let's talk about why your perception of yourself might just be someone else's reflection. Okay, so let's break it down. Cooley said that the looking glass self has three main parts. We imagine how we appear to others. We imagine how they judge us. We feel something based on those judgments: pride, embarrassment, confidence, self-doubt, you name it. Sound familiar? Of course it does. This is basically the plot of every teenage coming-of-age movie ever. Think about it. You walk into a party, imagine that everyone is looking at you, silently judging your outfit, and suddenly, boom, you're self-conscious. You've just looked into the social mirror and let it define you. But here's the kicker. You don't actually know what others are thinking. Most of the time, they're too busy worrying about how they look in their own social mirror to judge you. It's like an infinite loop of insecurity, right? Fun, right? Now, Cooley came up with this idea long before Instagram. But if he were alive today, he'd probably be shaking his head and saying, yeah, I told you so. Social media is like the looking glass self on steroids. Every like, comment, reaction becomes a piece of feedback that we interpret as judgment. We start curating our online selves based on what we think people will approve of. Ever deleted a post before it didn't get enough likes? Ever spent way too much time picking the perfect selfie filter? Congratulations, you've experienced the looking glass self in action. You are constantly adjusting your self-image based on how we assume others are seeing us. Even though, let's be real, half the time they're just mindlessly scrolling while waiting for their food delivery. Now, the everyday impact. But it's not just social media. The looking glass self sneaks into every part of our lives, our daily lives. At work, you give a presentation and think your boss is internally giving you a 3 out of 10. You feel embarrassed, but what if they're actually thinking, wow, they're really improving? In relationships, you send text messages, no response. Your brain immediately decides they must hate you now. In reality, they probably just fell asleep watching The Office for the 100th time. We go to the gym. You try a new workout and imagine everyone is watching you struggle. Truth? They're all just staring at themselves in the mirror, hyping themselves up. This is all about perception. The stories we tell ourselves about what others might be thinking influence how we feel about ourselves. But the real question is, how often are we actually right? Now, breaking free from this looking glass. So how do we stop letting other people's imagined opinions shape our reality? Here are a few mindset shifts. Realize that no one cares as much as you think everyone is too wrapped up in their own self-reflections to analyze your every move. You're the main character in your life, but just a side character in theirs. Shift the focus inward instead of asking, what do they think of me? And ask yourself, what do I think of me? Your opinion of yourself, what matters, way more than the guesses you make about other people's opinions. Embrace your inner weirdness. Really. The more you own who you are, the less you worry about how others perceive you. Confidence is magnetic. People are drawn to those who aren't afraid to be themselves. A final thought and a fun challenge. Here's something fun. Next time you're in a situation where you usually overthink how people see you, try this mental exercise. Pretend you're invisible. Yep, just for a moment, act as if nobody is watching or judging you. See how you feel. Does it make you more relaxed, more confident, more free to be your weird self and free and wonderful self? And remember, the way you perceive you isn't who you are. It's just a reflection bouncing back in the social mirror. If you're going to look at yourself through a lens, make sure it's one that's kind, realistic, and maybe even a little funny. That's a wrap for today's episode of the Wise Mindset Guy podcast. If you enjoyed this, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who needs a reminder that they are not the sum of their assumed judgments. Until next time, keep being you, unapologetically, unfiltered, and undeniably awesome. See you next episode.